The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank,
I didn't take the pictures. The videos they do. The videos there.
don't start that yet. They still making noise.
No rats.
They still making noise.
My picture's a table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Take your money.
Mr. Deputy,
They were not pets, they were rats.
I was not scheduled to speak at this time. The speaker is now walking in. But after I can yield.
He want prime time. He want prime time.
But after listening to the member for Tall Pines, I'm happy to speak at this time. Mr. Deputy, before I start, I want to extend condolence to Kelly Ingram, to the Ingram's families on the death of their daughter, Kelly Ingram, who had was just recently buried. I had known her personally from a young girl, watched her become a matured, very intelligent young lady. Kelly has made great contribution to this country. As a matter of fact, as Prime Minister, I had appointed her as chairman of the Straw Market Authority, and she had done an excellent job there. In fact, she'd made great changes there in terms of lighting, airflow, and improving the comfort of the vendors there, in spite of the challenges that she faced. And I know that Kelly had a great future ahead of her, and I have no doubt that she would have made greater contribution to this country, even greater than that of her father. And I extend condolence to the Ingram family, and may she rest in peace. But I have to speak today, Mr. Deputy. I wanted to find out what did Tall Pine eat today? Because I've never seen him so driven and motivated. And I mean, he has really put fire in me. And therefore I didn't want to run down the road with health, but I will touch it a little. But I want to make my contribution, Mr. Deputy, to this mid-year budget debate. And I want to say that the so-called New Day administration is on the back half of its term. We likely have just 2 budgets left, then the people will pass judgment on all that they did and all that they did not do.
Which is a lot.
And if you listened to the bragging of the Prime Minister and others, you think that it is all well. And there are no problems in our country. Our PM lives in a world of fantasy and make-believe. Mr. Deputy, the truth is that so much that should be addressed is not being tended to, because this administration focus is constant traveling, empty public relations, and taking care of PLPs. And I want to say, Mr. Deputy, PLPs loves to pretend that our economy is soaring. That, of course, is not the case. The pandemic was a difficult period in our country, and our people persevered. Nonetheless, coming out of it ready to thrive once again. Mr. Deputy, ever since the PLP took over government, they started off with mismanagement and on a bad foot. And the member for Tall Pine spoke about COVID. But let's look at some facts. And everybody, turn your TV and your dial up. Because you're going to hear facts. Mr. Deputy, When we were faced with COVID, the world, nobody understood COVID. There was no medication, no vaccine, no mask, no PPEs. Hospitals were inadequate. Beds were inadequate.
That's right.
Oxygen was inadequate. All we had was the little knowledge, past experience of 1918 when there was the last pandemic. And we knew that time that once individuals stayed apart and you avoid congregation, they survived. Now, let's look at facts. When the PLP took over, more than 100,000 people were vaccinated. Facts. Vaccines were available. Facts. Oxygen available. Beds were available. Hospitals had improved. Medication for COVID were available. PPEs were available. So, Mr. Deputy, one group, us, had nothing. The other group, them, inherited everything. All the medications were available. Now let's look at the facts. They managed the COVID for a shorter time than us who had no medication. In spite of that, 28 individuals died per month under the PLP.
Per month?
Per month.
28?
While it was 29 per month under the FNM with no medication. 47% of the COVID infections occurred under the PLP with medications. 40% of the deaths occurred under the PLP with medication. And let's look at the numbers. Under the PLP with all the medication, 1,504 cases of COVID per month with medication and all the knowledge. Under the FNM with nothing. 1,178 cases per month. In other words, with the hype, if the evidence suggests facts, I speak only facts, keep the dial up. The evidence suggests that if the PLP was in power at the time we were with no medication, I wouldn't have to be listening to you because you'd be dead.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for 12 points.
The member of Kalani is obviously fantasizing. Fantasizing based on his warped statistical analysis. The reality is, under his watch, very few people were tested. You didn't even have the PPEs and the kits to do the testing you needed. So the reality is, for the first time in the management of the pandemic, the Progressive Liberal Party demonstrated the way how a pandemic should be managed. Stop fantasizing, man.
See, I thought he had such energy, but it's somehow his ears clogged up because he's not hearing what I said. Mr. Deputy, the evidence are here that had they been in charge, the Bahamas would have been a different Bahamas because the death numbers would have been so high. We saw what was happening in Brazil. Mr. Deputy.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for 12 points.
It is in your own mind. In your own mind, my friend from Kalani. If you have all this evidence, table it.
The record, we will not be moved by LD today. Now, they know what I'm talking about when I said LD. You know. Mr. Deputy, the record also shows economic growth started at the end of our term. And the New Day administration inherited an improving situation from the worst of those dark, hard days. What has happened now is a slowing of our economy from the post-pandemic euphoria. Mr. Deputy, what was needed was for the PLP administration to have ideas and policies to grow the economy from where it was once things stabilize. That has not happened. The data the Prime Minister presented shows that, facts now, the economy grew by 2.6% in 2023. It slowed to 1.9% in 2024. And this year, the economy is forecast to grow by just 1.7%. Stopover arrivals were flat last year, equaling the number that came to the Bahamas the previous year. Our stopover visitor numbers are flat, while most of the region has seen an increase. What are they doing wrong? The government has not put in place a plan to increase the more lucrative stopover visitors, which will help to boost growth. The Prime Minister knows this growth is too slow. Yet he tried to suggest the figures do not capture the true scope of what is going on with economic activity. However, Mr. Deputy, the numbers are the numbers. It is his math that isn't mathing. No ideas, no plan, and low growth. That is the PLP administration under this Prime Minister. In the context of this slowing economy, the PLP is spending like there is no tomorrow on its supporters. The deficit is much higher than was forecast. The member for St. Barnabas has pointed out that this New Day administration has already spent nearly $250 million on consultants. That does not include the hundreds of other millions of dollars that have gone to PLP contractors. As you drive around, just look and see all the cleaning that's going on. Contracts left, right, and center.
You like it?
Left, right, and center. Then there is the constant luxury travel. The millions and millions that are being wasted by the PLP on living the good life abroad is extraordinary. In this mid-year review, we see that between July and December, the government spent $10 million on travel and subsistence. They are all over the place, shuffling money from this allocation and that allocation to feed their massive appetite for travel, living their best life. And despite all that is being spent on PLPs by the administration, many are not satisfied. The plenty they already got is not enough for the all for me baby crowd. I understand, Mr. Deputy. I understand that there are fights in the PLP to get even more. I'm told that some who have gotten some of the biggest amounts are still not satisfied. They are pressuring the PLP politicians for even more contracts, more jobs, and more liaison. This is greed gone. This is greed gone to bed. You don't know liaison? Go look it up. The country. Ask any of those kids that were here. The country cannot get out of this low growth, stuck trajectory when its leaders are primarily focused on enriching their own. This is the trajectory I didn't say on yourselves.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
Is Kalani disagreeing with the assessment of the IMF? He's an expert at everything else. If he says that he disagrees with them, then we can just understand that he just knows it all.
I don't understand your question. That is why they are accomplishing so little. Despite all the talk, you know, during the last debate, as a famous president, he said, I don't think he understood what he said. Despite all the talk, they have not finished any major investment projects. Indeed, some of the things they brag about in Grand Bahama were initially negotiated by the previous FNM administration. Go check. Go read your book. In the PLP's Blueprint Manifesto, the Prime Minister promised to offer relief and dignity to Bahamians and create a more dynamic, more inclusive economy. What we have under the PLP is one of the greatest transfers of wealth from government to party supporters that the Bahamas has ever seen. Our economy is even more unequal under this group entitled All For Me, Baby. They are progressive in name only. In their policies, they're taxing breadbasket items. They are regressive. Just the other day, we witnessed yet another example of how well they treat their own. The Minister of Labor told this House that nearly 500 retirees were brought back to service, and nearly all of them are making salaries, pensions, and benefits. The PLP has tried to spin this issue all types of ways, but the Bahamian people wasn't buying it. They know what really went down. The administration has brought back their supporters on sweetheart deals. These lucky supporters now get to make more money than they have ever made in their lives using taxpayer money.
Yeah. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gates.
I respect my elders, and I really did not want to. I did no, man, Doc. Kalani is good people. I respect my elders, so I did not want to interrupt. But I have two, so I'll take my time and use my 2 points of order. Doc, I want you to understand, and you are April-born and a Saxon, so, I respect you. But, Kalani, I am standing on 2 points of order at this point. You made a comment initially in your presentation about deaths during this administration, COVID deaths during this administration. We'd just like you at the end to lay the evidence of that. If not, then if you could retract that. Regarding the rehires, I just want to put on record, I thought we did before, that many of our retirees who have been retained, we met them in place. We did not send them home. We kept them, which means that they were engaged under the former administration.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Point of order, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The statement suggesting that the 230 policemen, all of whom were retained, having retired before 50, are all PLP supporters, and somehow that we cherry pick, while we would love them all to be PLP supporters, that is disparaging the persons who aren't in the House, as it is to correctional officers who are brought back regardless of political affiliation, and Royal Bahamas Defense Force Marines, all of whom retire currently before 60. It is disparaging to the persons of those forces who are not in this House to defend themselves.
Mr. Deputy, the evidence speaks for itself. They were receiving all their pensions, etc. And that's how the New Day administration rolls. They get their people straight and do not care how bad it looks. Again, the Bahamian people know that what the PLP is doing is wrong. If the deputy allow me at the end, I want to answer all of you and expand, but I'm not going to take up my time now to get into that. Bahamas Public Service Union President Kingsley Ferguson told the Nassau Guardian the practice of rehiring retired civil servants decimated morale in the public sector. There's also been strong criticism online and on social media for what the PLP is doing. The people's anger toward the Davis administration is full-blown and getting worse by the day. Mr. Deputy, Another example of PLP dealings that are good for them and not for the people is the scandal in Exuma regarding the Bahamas Mooring Limited. Sit down and listen. The company was given a seabed lease, I will go slow, of approximately 4,600 acres in Exuma to install moorings. The government has had to cancel the deal with the company because of all kinds of irregularities, secret dealings, and conflicts of interest. It was just the latest scandal in a party known for their corruption. The company in question had not received the required legal permits, yet it was doing physical works in Exuma. Listen to me. Additionally, the Deputy Director of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister signed the lease for the deal as a witness of Bahamas Moorings. Her husband is the president of Bahamas Moorings. The government had to quickly backtrack and stop the secretive deal. There were many questions about what was going on in Exuma and who all was involved in it. Clearly, Mr. Deputy, clearly, there was a conflict of interest with the Prime Minister's Deputy Communications Director serving, on the one hand, as a government official, and on the other, as an agent of Bahamas Mooring. Question is, was she a double agent? And how many other double agents are within the confines of the Office of the Prime Minister? As a result of her actions and this conflict of interest, she must do the honorable thing and resign as Deputy Director of Communications. In fact, the Prime Minister should demand her resignation immediately. Mr. Deputy, if the Prime Minister does not demand her resignation, it would mean that he condones such conflicts of interest in his administration. It is the Prime Minister who must clean up the mess from this scandal. If he does not, it is clear what message he is sending to the Bahamian people. Is there anyone else? Listen, I'll speak clearly. Is there anyone else in the Prime Minister's office who may have a conflict of interest or who may need to resign? There was something shady about this deal. Bahamians wonder who all had beneficial interest in what was happening in Exuma. Were there other government officials involved? And if so, who are they? Now, I don't ask questions, I know answers now. I call on the Prime Minister to fully disclose all that occurred with the government and Bahamas Mooring. We must remember that the Prime Minister signed the lease. Accordingly, he has a direct responsibility to the country and to Parliament to tell us who was involved in this deal, from the approval process to who was going to benefit. Give the Bahamian people a full accounting of what was transpiring with their national asset of seabed of Exuma, some of the most pristine waters in the world. Now, Mr. Deputy, I want all Bahamas to listen to me carefully. Take that hand from my chin, listen. In 2018,
You know what
in 2018, Mr. Deputy, in 2018, my government met and had discussion with respect to moorings. My government was discussing about the introduction of a mooring authority, this 2018, and a PPP, where funds from the mooring authority would go to the respective family islands, the local government, so as to improve development and assist the family islands. That's where we were placing the money. An authority with 2018. I was Prime Minister, he's Prime Minister, he can check the records. He can check the records. The funds were to go to the local government. But Mr. Deputy, what was most important at that time, listen very carefully, at that time was estimated that the income would be about $40 to $50 million a year, 2018. 40 to 50 million per year. These few oligarchs who put such program together with a 25-year lease, you're talking about, now listen carefully, $1.25 billion. $1.25 billion to the so-called oligarchs. The Bahamian people want to know why monies could not go to local government on authority as we were planning. The records are there. I'm speaking as a former Prime Minister now. This is similar to what is happening with Bahamas Grid. This is similar to what is happening with Bahamas Grid. With Bahamas Grid, distribution and transmission, the BPL lines, the government would have infused its asset, which was worth about $100 million, and that $100 million gave the government 40% of Bahamas Grid, distribution and transmission. The oligarchs put in $30 million and got 60% of the company. Now, yes, another $100 million had to be raised, and therefore that $100 million went as bonds, $100 million at 8% went as bonds. But, Mr. Deputy, the financial statements, proposals, projections by Kalina for Bahamas Grid projected that at the end of the lease, they would make approximately $500 million, facts. So the question the Bahamian people want to know, are they the same oligarchs with Bahamas Grid who would make almost $500 million over their lease time? And are they the same individuals who will make $1.25 billion over their lifetime? These are very, very disturbing, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy. You got 5 minutes. And you got 5 minutes? Mr. Deputy, at that time, in 2018, the individuals are still there. In 2018, Exuma, we thought would become the Bahamian boating Riviera. Swimming pigs, swimming with sharks, dripping caves of Exuma, turtles, and Farmers Key.
Member, the chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Yeah, on a point of order, the honourable member for Kalani has made reference to some documents which he appears to be relying and as the rules require, he is obligated to do two things. One is to lay it on the table, and number two, adopt whatever the assertions contained therein as his own. And I would like, through you, Mr. Deputy, to challenge this honorable member to lay the documents on the table or to withdraw it.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member, are you going to lay the documents?
Mr. Deputy, you know, call it no bluff. In 2018, I was the Prime Minister. I know of the meetings. Ranwood Wells was leading the charge in this. We were moving towards the establishment and discussion with the establishment of a mooring authority. We knew, just like we did, the overflight service fees, and projected that we'd make $50 million, which would have been earmarked for airports. The same principle applied. The $40 to $50 million were going to be earmarked for the family island. Check the records in the office of the
Deputy, I didn't ask him whether he was Prime Minister or not. That's not the objection. I've asked, Mr. Deputy, consistent with the rules, 33(1), that this honorable member who purports to be quoting from some documentation, to lay it on the table, and if he is not able to do it, withdraw. That's the rules of the House. Whether he was Prime Minister or not is quite irrelevant to the objection raised.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member, are you going to withdraw or lay the documents?
Cannot withdraw facts. Cannot withdraw.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort
The
Charlotte.
honorable member who is well acquainted with the rules of the House. As you have looked at the camera, you can look at the camera and say, Mr. Deputy, I hereby withdraw, and proceed. And when you have whatever documents you purport to be relying upon, you comply with the rules.
Let me say again. We were establishing the authority, mooring authority. It was projected 2018. So I gave you all the relevant information to go back and check. 2018. It was projected to generate $40 to $50 million that was going to local government.
Yeah. Honorable member,
Now,
honorable member,
an entity
one minute.
up,
The
and that
honorable
$40 to $50 million over 25 years represent $1.25 billion.
Yes, honorable member for Kalani, the honorable member for Fort Charlotte is asking a question. Are you going to withdraw or are you going to lay the documents?
I can answer briefly again.
Okay.
The answer is N-O, capital N-O. What else you want to say? I said no. So sit down. That's not going to change. I'm not withdrawing at this.
If it is
for Charlotte.
N-O, however he is representing no, I therefore ask the Deputy Speaker that it be stricken from the record.
Immediately.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have always proven to be very liberal in the application of the rules and the fairness of all members. And I commend you for that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, if we're going to get into this back and forth between the member for Fort Charlotte trying to be Speaker, the good member for Cat Island should have appointed him to be the Speaker there is also a rule that members shall not read their speeches. So if you're going to take this stand, every single time one of your juniors begins and stands up and reads their entire speech, I will raise up on a point of order and tell them to sit down. The point, I'm talking to the Speaker
Honorable
for
members,
Charlotte.
Members, go ahead.
We have rules, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that are followed and honored, and we have rules that are not followed and honored. For the purpose of fairness in this debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and so it doesn't get too far out of place, I would ask Mr. Deputy Speaker to consider the Prime Minister being given the honor and respect that he deserves as a former Prime Minister of the country and being allowed to have his debate remain on the public record because he represents a great constituents of Killarney. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we were to go by every single rule in the rule book, if any member on the government side stands up to read their speech, and they have a lot of juniors, then I'll ask that you enforce the rules and make them talk about something they know nothing about because it's not written in the head, written on paper by writers for them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have the overall authority here. No matter the rules, it's in your discretion.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Before we get Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte, for clarification, can you read the rules to the House, please? Thank you.
Every member desiring to speak shall rise and address the chair. A member may read from extracts from books, journals, papers, and documents, may refresh his memory from notes, but he shall not quote any newspaper unless he adopts such quotation as his own words and such are relevant to the business under the debate. Members, as a general rule, shall not read their speech. This member has referred to documents. He was quoting. He quoted valuation. He purported to have quoted valuation. And he gave the source. He gave the source. You sitting right next. Oh, please. But what is he talking? He quoted. Oh, please.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Are you saying?
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I really don't understand the point made by Sinans. If he says we must all not read speeches, that's fine, because Kalani is reading now. And so nobody is taking objection to him reading. But Kalani is a serial offender of saying he has documents that he will table, and he never tables them. He never ever tables them. He said, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he was going to come and bring the documents to shut me up about the $12.775 million he spent traveling during the COVID year after Dorian, and he never bought those either. And he just keeps pulling things from out of the air. And it's just not a way to properly debate.
The chair recognizes the Honorable
First
Member
of all,
for Kalani.
first of all, the whole argument about mooring authority, I read nothing. It all came from my memory as Prime Minister and involvement. So now you want a former Prime Minister to withdraw all of his memory from the past? I'm not supposed to remember anything? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on?
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Mr. Speaker, if Kalani is saying he remembers, then the public can take whether his memory is accurate or not with a grain of salt. But when he says Alfred.
Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown. Honorable Member for Kalani. Honorable member,
Mr. Deputy Speaker, there appears to be a culture that we can stand in this honorable place and just say whatever comes to our minds. It is strange that if he had this great plan to give the local government all this money in 2018, that he didn't do anything in 2018, 2019, 2020, or 2021. He may have forgotten it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and if he forgot from 2018 to act on it for 3 years, we can question his memory now. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, he referred to other documents. He referred to other documents and other figures. He referred to Kalina's evaluation, and he quoted a figure from it. He quoted a figure from it. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if he is saying, don't rely on Kalina, rely on my memory, that is not what he is saying. And as I say, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he is a serial offender. He didn't even realize that he gave Metro Security the contract 6 days before the election. He remembered us giving it. He didn't remember something 6 days before the election in 2021, and he expects us to trust his memory from 2018?
Member for Cat Island. Member for Cat Island.
Honorable member for Kalani.
Member for Cat Island.
Yeah, we're gonna move on because we'll have that stricken from the record, so we can move on.
Member
So
for
I
Cat
think
Island.
we're on that too long.
You are the Prime Minister of this country today. A ruling has just, Speaker just ruled, Speaker just ruled, Speaker just ruled that everything happening now, you must delete your memory between now and when you come out. I've never heard this in my cotton-picking mind. This is so...
Honorable member, the chair made no such ruling. But you can finish. Yes, sir. Honorable member, you have...
Memory.
You remember his name?
Mr. Speaker. Time run out. No. I want to ask a question. I want to ask a question. Mr. Deputy. Boy. Now let me sit so no time. Anyhow. Mr. Deputy. These questions will be asked at the end of the debate, but I want it to be on record now. Would the Honorable Prime Minister please confirm for the Bahamian people, it's a question, that he will refer this massive case of corruption in his office related to the seabed lease to the Independent Commission of Investigations as soon as the commissioners are appointed. We debated this independent commission, so you would inform the Bahamian public whether that would be referred there. Mr. Deputy, I have questions, but these questions will be asked at a later date. Mr. Deputy, there are a lot more I have to say, and as time is not on my side, I will deal with those again. But allow me to ask another question. And in the interest of preserving the trust, in the interest of preserving the trust of Bahamian people and the integrity of the office of the Prime Minister, thank you very much, sir. Would the Prime Minister please tell the Bahamian people that he has proactively terminated the prominent employee in his office who knew that she had a massive conflict of interest with respect to corrupt seabed lease and still went ahead and witnessed her husband's signature on that multi-million-dollar bid. Mr. Deputy, Kalani supports this media budget and asks but when we reach the budget debate in June, I have 1 hour. I have 1 hour. And my memory will come back with more. With more. Since it was ruled that you cannot delete the memory of the Prime Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many